Hello and welcome. If you're watching us from the nation's capital, Abuja, Nigeria, or around the world, this is Public Intel on Viewer Television. I am Dakore Ependu. On today's edition, we begin with stories that made the headlines during the week, then an exclusive interview on climate change as a threat to global or national security. And finally, we address the challenges of military reforms in Nigeria with our guests. Stick with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back. We begin with the headlines. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has approved billions of nairas for community policing to tackle insecurity problems in the country. The approval was disclosed at the Visual National Executive Council meeting presided by the Vice President Yemi Oshibanjo on Thursday in Abuja. The visual meeting was anchored from the presidential villa on Thursday in Abuja. Also on the headlines, Nigeria Air Force deploys special forces to southern Kaduna. The Nigerian Air Force now said it has deployed its team of special forces operatives to southern Kaduna to stop the killing ravaging the area. NAV Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Commodore Ibukunle Daramola, who made this known, said the team were received by Commander Sector 7 of Operation Safe Haven, Colonel David Nwakanubi, to join the contingent of the Defense Headquarters Special Forces personnel already deployed to the area. Daramola said the Special Forces would remain in Kafanchan until lasting peace is restored. Also on the headlines, IGP deploys crack detectives to Oyo State over suspected serial killer's escape. The Inspector General of Police, IGP Mohammed Adamu, has deployed additional investigative aids to Oyo State to complement the efforts of the State Police Command in the ongoing manhunt and efforts aimed at re-arresting Sunday Shodipe, a prime suspect in the multiple murder of innocent citizens at Akinyele local government area, Moniya in Ibadan. According to a statement by the First Public Relations Officer, Force Headquarters Abuja, DCP Frank Mba, on Wednesday, the additional deployment comprises crack detectives from the Intelligence Response Team and the Special Tactical Squad of the Force Intelligence Bureau, Abuja. Meanwhile, the IGP calls for calm and enjoins citizens to cooperate with the police by providing useful information that can lead to the unearthing of the whereabouts of Sunday Shodipe, the suspected serial killer. On Operation Sahel Sanity, lawmakers, governors, traditional rulers hails the Chief of Army Staff. Chairman Committee on Army in the Senate and House of Representatives, governors from the Northwest Zone and traditional rulers have praised the efforts of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General T.Y. Buratai, officers and men of the Nigerian Army in their efforts to rid the Northwest region of banditry, kidnapping and other forms of criminalities. The commendations was given when a high-level team from the National Assembly, state governors and traditional rulers from the zone visited the headquarters of Operation Sahel Sanity in the Special Army Super Camp for Faskari last week. A statement from the Defense Media Operations of the Defense Headquarters in Abuja, signed by Brigadier General Bernard Onyeuku, Acting Director, Defense Media Operations, said during the visit, the dignitaries paid glowing tributes to the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tako Yusufu Buratai, officers and soldiers of the Nigerian Army, while attesting to the fact that farming and other socio-economic activities are returning to the Northwest Zone. And that's it on the headlines for now. You can catch us online. Our website, www.publicintelwithdakore.org, has more security stories. You can send us an email using publicintelwithdakore@gmail.com. Connect with us on all social media platforms. On Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, it is Public Intel with Dakore. And on Twitter, it is PI with Dakore. Let's go on a short break. We'll be right back. Stick with us.
Viewer Television is now in Kaduna, Kano, Katsina and Sokoto. With our large viewership and followership on our social media channels, all we do is broadcast quality content that keeps you glued to your TV set and devices 24/7.
What is happening is exactly what you will see on television.
Now to the Senate, the chairman of the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on Security challenge.
Watch out for news updates.
President Yemi Oshibanjo on Thursday received Jack Ma,
sports shows,
The Nigerians are still celebrating the big money move.
entertainment programs,
Performing and then my wig fell out like boom. It's supposed to be like the most.
lifestyle and more. For more details and inquiries, log on to our website www.viewertv.com.ng. Viewer Television, giving your view a voice.
Welcome back on climate change as a threat to national or global security. In 2018, U.S. officials expressed concern about ISIS and Al-Qaeda affiliates in the Sahel region. Robert Muga, who analyzes global climate and security challenges at the Ingrape Institute, agrees with the assessment, claiming that the drying of Lake Chad has bolstered recruitment efforts of extremist groups, including Boko Haram, the militant group operating in Nigeria. About 50 million people in the Sahel are pastoralists, whose livelihoods depend on rearing livestock. But drought and floods triggered by climate change are shrinking their lands, leaving over 29 million people food insecure. The impact of climate change on the Sahel is clearly shown by the shrinking of Lake Chad, spanning 7 countries, including Nigeria, Niger, and Cameroon. The lake basin is critical to the livelihoods of nearly 30 million people. Now, since the 1960s, the lake water supply has shrunk by over 90%, according to the United Nations Environment Program. Let's have a talk with a climate change expert through the phone, Chibes Ezekiel, Executive Coordinator, Strategic Youth Network for Development, SYND. Chibes, if you can hear me, today the United Nations, the European Union have classified climate change as a threat to global and national security. Now, my question is, how is climate change fueling extremism?
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm so glad to be part of this important conversation. Let me say hello to your cherished viewers. I think there's no doubt that climate change is contributing or fueling, extremism. And it's very important to really share or indicate how that happens. One of the effects of climate change is the issue of drought, where you have water bodies drying up, where you have some fertile grounds drying up because of the massive heat as a result of climate change. And when that happens, people are forced to migrate. So people who depend on the water body in their locality are forced to migrate. And most part of Africans, or most people in Africa, are believed to be dependent on Greek as a source of livelihood, and majority are into pastoral farming. So once they have their cattle, their herds, their flock, they need to go around looking for greener pastures for their animals. After all, that is their only source of livelihood. So whatever it takes for them to ensure that they have food for their flock or for their animals, they tend to do so, even if it means fighting, for that to happen. That is what happens. So people move around with their cattle, and in migrating, they end up entering to people's homes, people's property, people's field, and that can bring about some skirmishes or some debate or some argument. And the worst scenario is fighting, to the extent that it is possible that you have some pastoral farmers who migrate and carry along with them some weapons, one to protect themselves, and possibly to fight anybody who may attempt to deny them of what they think they need to take care of their flock. So because of the environmental impact of climate change, we have farmers who are moving from one location to the other, and when that happens, we have now limited resources because water bodies are drying up, and not only in one location, but it's cross-cutting, or it cuts across. So once we have limited water resources, that could lead to some potential conflict of interest or conflicts or fights among these players. And obviously people cannot live in a community without water, so water is essential. So therefore it is for the survival of the fittest. So therefore whatever it means to have access to water, then people will be forced to do it. So on that score, we can see that climate change is actually contributing or fueling extremism to a large extent.
Analyzing the link between climate change and non-state armed groups like insurgency, terrorism, and organized crime in a warming climate. What are the sustainable alternatives to extremism?
Well, indeed, as indicated earlier on, people will end up doing everything in their power just to survive. Even if it means killing others, they end up doing it. And that's what we see when it comes to these terrorists or, insurgent groups, because for whatever their interest is, they want to survive. They need some resources. They want to be heard, they want to be powerful, and then climate change is also bringing its own dimension to the process. So, of course, in a lot of all these difficulties and challenges, we need to look at the sustainable ways, of managing or dealing with this extremism. Well, climate change is happening already. I know there are ongoing interventions through the two major mechanisms, that is the mitigation and then the adaptation. So, in this situation, to support people who end up migrating or who may end up migrating because of lack of water resources, lack of conducive environment for their flock and all that. I think that the state authorities must provide some enabling environment. One of the solution has to do with provision of boreholes. One option is about irrigation. It's just trying to provide some mechanism that can encourage people to stay where they live instead of moving to a different place to fight over resources that does not even belong to them in the first place. So I believe that those could be some of the sustainable ways, of dealing with extremism. One other way is to also look at other avenues or source of livelihood for these people, because usually people fight over property, right to survive, right to live, right to possess, wealth and all that. We may want to look at other better alternatives of livelihood that they can consider, give them some better employable skills, to make them, very, to help them, develop their skills, their personality, in order for them to feel that, okay, at least they have what it takes to also take care of themselves and their families and all that, and not strive with others over limited resources out there, because climate change is happening. So whilst we fight against climate change through all the available mechanisms, I believe that with immediate effect, one of the things that ought to be done is how do we deal with these people, because most of them are unemployed. The same way they farm or their forefathers were farming, that's the same approach being adopted today. But I think there are new mechanisms today when it comes to farming. There are new approaches. Modernization has taken over. So it's important to bring them up to speed. Let them understand that, they can't do farming or business the same way as they used to do and expect different results. So it's about bringing them up to speed, giving them the capacity building, the necessary resources, the knowledge, the understanding, so they can, improve upon their what they do, or possibly divert to other profitable business. So I believe that once people are comfortable with what they do, or once they are happy with, at least they are able to guarantee some conducive source of livelihood, that can limit, if not eradicate, extremism altogether. So I think that those options or these proposals, when considered, can help deal with extremism. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We appreciate your time very much. Chibeze Ezekiel, Executive Coordinator, Strategic Youth Network for Development, SYND. Thank you for coming on board. Before we go into our other segments, let's go on a quick break. We'll be right back. Stick with us.